My name's Cyrus, Beschloss. I'm one of the founders of Generation Lab. One of the big things that stuck out to me about the results was optimism. The further out you got from the individual, the less optimism you saw. I don't know why that is the case, but tells us something that optimism remains in terms of the individual, but then when we get out to the level of the United States and the globe, don't see that level of optimism. Definitely need to dig deeper.
The survey findings reveal a story of both continuity and change. Young Americans are definitely making their impact on their vision of the American dream. In particular, they value the interpersonal relationships and simply maintaining their mental health, especially after a pandemic that they've told us had very permanent impacts on them. But they also value more traditional elements of the American dream, like financial success and home ownership.
Hi everyone, my name is Afani Amuna and I'm a May 2023 graduate of the School of Public Affairs.
Hi, my name is Logan Galimi. I'm a third-year senior in the Politics, Policy, and Law Scholars program at AU's School of Public Affairs.
Hi, my name is Rohan. I am a senior at the School of International Service.
I'm Travis Mavison. I'm a second-year Master's in Public Policy.
I am Jane Caroline Fusco. I'm not a rising junior, I'm a junior period, and I'm in the School of Communication studying broadcast journalism.
My name is Juan Pablo Villasmil. I'm called JP. I graduated in 2023 from the School of International Service.
My name is Samantha Hessel. I'm a current second-year student at American University. I'm studying political science with certificates in advanced leadership studies and political thought.
I'm Kanaya Harris, graduating class of 2024 in the spring, and I am in the School of Public Affairs and also the College of Arts and Science.
I think what was most compelling to me about the poll was the reality that so many of us in our generation actually feel quite optimistic about the future.
I think that it was really interesting that Gen Z is optimistic. We see a really high turnout from them in elections, and that makes me think that they want to change things, or that there's something that they want to see that's different than what our parents did.
I understand that a number of people actually expect to have or to be better off in their future and have a better life than their parents did. I think that's particularly compelling, especially given some of the climate issues we're having, issues with racial and gender equality, and other issues of social justice.
One was when asked which areas of politics have the biggest impact on people's personal lives, a lot of people immediately recognized local government, and I thought that was really cool. And secondly, I thought it was interesting about how similar we were across the board in a bunch of different demographic controls regarding what we thought the American dream should include. And like the first one was freedom to make your decisions, and the second one was like strong social relationships, and I really thought that was cool.
Marriage, owning property, forming a family, were not seen as much as a central component of the American dream as I think it is.
Because I still feel like a lot of the traditional ideals that come with the American dream are still kind of looked at as a part of the American dream, despite the fact that a lot of America has changed so much since the American dream became an idea.
In terms of like identities in young Americans, a lot of them had some similarities and commonalities, how they thought of the reimagined American dream, and that was really nice to see.
But it's definitely interesting that the majority of the division seems to be coming from one's political alignment more than any other aspect of your identity.
Definitely was just in regards to Gen Z involvement in voting and political involvement. So the numbers were a little bit lower than I personally expected, and going to a school like American, I think we all have a perception of what our generation is involved in, but looking at those numbers, they were a little lower than I expected.
Most interesting part was definitely their engagement with the election, with around 50% understanding the importance of elections on their lives. I think that was pretty fascinating based on the different stories and narratives that I've been hearing about millennials and Gen Z.
One of the most surprising findings is the extent to which young Americans feel that today's political leaders aren't doing enough to support them on their path to realizing the American dream. And I think that's something candidates in the 2024 election really need to be paying attention to, especially because campaigns are always trying to crack the code on youth turnout.
They're talking about mental health and, how politicians, they don't trust them. I think those kind of go hand in hand together because if you don't trust the people that's running your government, then you're going to have a harder time believing that they can help you with your struggles.
I was really expecting students and like young Americans to be extremely motivated to vote, especially with like the upcoming election. So it made me think of like, how can we get young Americans more excited and more motivated in terms of like voting?
I think here in DC, we're very hyper aware of the fact of what's going on because that's the reason why we're here. But when I go home to Pittsburgh or I talk to other people in other states, when I do internships and stuff, they're not as politically driven, and I think we have this false sense of reality at AU that everyone cares about everything happening, and I think young people see a lot more than our parents did because of social media, so they're a little bit more politically active than other generations. But I also think that at AU we think everything is the most important thing because we live here and we're all obsessed with it.
There were a lot of answers from the population that kind of were conflicting with each other, and I think a lot of that goes to show that when people try to put Gen Z or millennials in a box as like one monolith of a cohort, that we're not. We are definitely people that come from all walks of life that have different viewpoints, and some of them might be conflicting, and that just shows that we are, again, not a monolith, and that, we're human beings just like everyone else.
Just in regards to Gen Z involvement in voting and political involvements.
But yeah, people in Gen X and how they disagree with the boomers, the disparities between how Gen Z and millennials view things. Those are all things that I'm really interested in, and I think that surveys like this one explore how a generation feels about a really important concept and what it means to live in the United States. And I would think that it's good to encourage others to do the same across generations, across the country. Diversity in research is always good.
We all know that there's a mental health epidemic among especially youth, and I think this survey kind of confirms that, and maybe looking into how we can alleviate that mental health crisis in the future could be really interesting.
I think one thing that would be very interesting to look at is like what people consider to be American. So when we talk about the American dream, because the country has changed so much and there's a lot of new, not necessarily new things, but ideas that we're actually starting to reckon with as a society, that it would be interesting to see how people perceive the term American and like what it actually means to be American. And then that would also help to further define what the American dream is to people.
But how mental health has changed as a result of the pandemic and what are the key differences, because I was a gap year student, so I graduated high school in 2020. And I see key differences between me and my peers, especially freshman year when we all came in, because I had 4 years of like basic normalcy, and they lost their proms and they didn't have a normal graduation for most of it. So I think that seeing those minor differences in between maybe just a few years of that, and even younger kids now who are like in middle school and elementary school thinking about what their world is going to look like and how their mental health struggles have changed.
See how like young Americans, how they view certain issues that were extremely important, like focusing on one issue that was extremely important like many years ago, probably like with millennials and like our parents like generation, and see how they've have been able to like connect to that issue, or if they feel like it's as important as it is now, but focusing on like one specific issue.
I would love to see a kind of timeline of engagement with younger folks from the ages of 18 to around 34, of if they believe the election is becoming more impactful in their life as we get closer to the election.
There have just been so many events that have happened to us, whether it was the Sandy Hook shooting or the pandemic or whatever else it might be. Things sort of investigating how those sort of the variety of events have impacted us.